What's up, YouTube? JM Comics here, and today we're gonna try something a little bit different than what I normally do. So, I've never actually reviewed a TV show on the channel so far. I've reviewed movies, video games, and I've talked about Arcane and Cobra Kai in my 2021 year in review video, but that's about it. And I'm not exactly sure how this format's gonna go. I'll just talk about different topics like I do with movies, but we'll see. We'll see. I did sort of review Loki by doing each episode ranked, but that's not what I'm doing here with Peacemaker because I forgot a lot of those episodes. Not gonna lie, they all just blend together so seamlessly. So I'm just talking about the show as a collective whole. And before we start, remember to like, subscribe, and comment down below. And if I sound a little weird, it's kind of late at night and I'm tired, so please bear with me. Okay, so first off, James Gunn and John Cena are an ultimate pairing in this show. James Gunn is basically perfect. I don't think there's anything he's made that I don't like. I like the Guardians movies. I like the Suicide Squad, and I love this. So, I wouldn't say this is his best thing, his best product yet. I'll still say the Suicide Squad and Guardians Volume 1 are the best, and then probably this and then Volume 2. So, that's how I'd rank his stuff so far. And I haven't seen the Snake movie he made. It was like, I don't know if it was snakes on a plane. It was like snakeophobia or something. I don't know what it was, but it was about snakes. It wasn't snakes on a plane, but it was like that. And there was another Sliver. It was Sliver, yes. And then there was another movie he made. I forgot what that was, but I think that was a superhero movie. So I'll probably see that one before I see Sliver. But anyway, James Gunn is just the perfect director for this type of project, because Peacemaker is a loser character from the comics. He's completely random. He doesn't make sense. His whole thing is contradictory. That he fights for peace, no matter how many people he has to kill to get it. And James Gunn was perfect to take this terrible sounding concept, this crazy sounding concept, and turn it into a really deep and profound yet obviously hilarious TV show. Like he has done similarly with the Suicide Squad and the Guardians of the Galaxy. And speaking of people behind the scenes, like I was mentioning earlier, John Cena really owns this role. Before this, I always looked at John Cena as like, he's WWE guy who just decided to, I don't know if it's WWE. He was a wrestler guy. Maybe that was the association he was a part of. But he was just this wrestler guy who decided to become an actor. And other actors like Dave Bautista and obviously The Rock had sort of adjusted themselves as actors. And John Cena, I just hadn't felt that with him so far. But this TV show really took him above and beyond and showed that he can actually be an actor with many different sides to him. I haven't seen many of his movies before this, but I saw Ferdinand. I'm not gonna talk about that. But I just never really felt John Cena was an actor until this TV show, and he does a really really good job with the character. You can clearly feel that he's passionate about the character. He literally went around wearing the mask everywhere he went, or like the helmet, like on Jimmy Fallon and stuff like that. So he was clearly dedicated to the character, and he really put his all into it. And not only did he play off the funny moments, but he also played off the darker moments. I'm gonna get into spoilers here, okay? Like spoilers for the rest of the video, starting now. The part where his dad dies or where he shoots his dad, you can feel John Cena's acting coming through. He's just a really great actor. And when he thinks Eagly's gonna die, you could just see the sadness on his face, even though Eagly doesn't die, fortunately. And yeah, John Cena can really do the funny man, but he can also be emotional and heartfelt at times, which is perfect for a leading character as broken as Peacemaker Christopher Smith is. Next on the chopping block is Eagly. Just a pretty cool concept, man. Like this guy who fights for the American ideal of peace and democracy or whatever. He has a pet eagle. It works so perfectly, and Eagly is really funny. Like every time Eagly's on screen, I just wanna hug him. I don't know. I'm jealous that Peacemaker gets to hug him, because Eagly, he's just amazing. Like when he drops the possum at his leg, that's hilarious. When he like bites or like I don't know what he does, like gnaws on John Economos, it's funny. Eagly is just a funny character, and I'm tired of like animal sidekicks being overused in movies because they're not that fun anymore. But Eagly is an exception, okay? Because he makes sense conceptually, and he's really funny. And I was really sad when I thought he was gonna die, but luckily he survived. The team dynamics in this show are also a really big factor in why I like it. And yeah, as you're gonna see, I really like this show. But the team dynamics really hold the whole show together. Each of the characters by themselves is not that good. Like Vigilante and Peacemaker are strong characters, And Emilia Harcourt, John Economos, and Adebayo are all characters I feel like they work so well in this dynamic. But even by themselves, they're interesting. But when they're together, they're just 10 times more interesting. Or like Vigilante by himself, I feel like that'd be too much on the audience's mind. But when you put him with a deadbeat like Emilia Harcourt, it's way better. It works. And Adebayo is so nice, but when you compare her to Peacemaker, they just complement each other so well. So the whole cast seems to complement each other really, really well. And in that as well is Clemson Mern. Yeah, Clemson Mern. He's also very deadbeat, but I really think he's comedically deadbeat. Unlike Harcourt, who's just deadbeat. So that they just all play off each other. It doesn't feel like two characters fill up the same role exactly. They all work together in unison to just exude personality, and it really, really works. And speaking of Vigilante, he is the best character in this show. Besides probably Peacemaker, Vigilante is the best character in this show. He's hilarious. He's definitely a ripoff of Deadpool because if you've seen Arrow or if you know DC Comics in general, you'll know Vigilante is not a funny character. He is a serious, crazy, suicidal maniac. But they make him seem like such a Deadpool-like character, which is ironic considering Deadpool was a ripoff of DC's. What's his name again? Deathstroke. Yeah, he's a ripoff of DC's Deathstroke, and now DC's ripping off Marvel's ripoff of their own character. So, I guess it's really funny. And Vigilante just works so well. Freddie Stroma, I'm pretty sure that's the actor's name, does a really good job here. And you might have known this. You probably have because it's been around the internet for a while. But Vigilante was originally going to be portrayed by someone else, but they had to leave for I don't know the reason, but they have to leave. So Freddie Stroma got cast as like the fill-in role, and the fill-in actor, and he did a really, really good job with this role. And I've heard people saying they want him in a spin-off, but like I said earlier, he'd be way too much on the audience's mind. They should just keep him as a side character on. We'll get to season 2 of Peacemaker when I talk about that at the end. But they should really keep him as a sidekick character, because I mean Deadpool works by himself, but we don't need a Deadpool. We need a side character like Vigilante who just spices up whatever he's in. And the show overall is just very original. Like, superhero media lately has been kind of not good. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, No Way Home was great, but the majority of superhero things that come out are like they're good, they're solid, but they just don't feel original. I feel like I'm eating the same media over and over again, and it just doesn't feel fulfilling necessarily. And I think many genres have felt this before. Like sitcoms, they felt it for a while now, and we're starting to feel it with superhero stuff. But James Gunn keeps keeping things fresh. Everything James Gunn makes feels like a fresh new spin on the superhero genre. The original Guardians of the Galaxy came at a time when most superhero things were trying to be serious, like Captain America, The Winter Soldier, and For the Dark World, those movies that came out right before it. Guardians of the Galaxy was like, we don't care about being serious, we just want to be entertaining. And it was an extremely entertaining movie. Similarly, The Suicide Squad took many risks by killing off so many characters, and similarly, this show is just so stupidly absurd. I'm so sorry, it's too late for this right now. It's so stupidly absurd that it stands out from anything else that Marvel or DC is making at the time. And it really makes its own footprint in the superhero genre. I don't think it's very impactful, but it's definitely its own thing. I can give it that. And that intro, can we just talk about it? Perfection. When I saw the intro for the first time in the first episode, I was like, this is going to be a good show. Even if this show sucks, this intro is going to at least boost it up 2 points for me. Or like 2 out of 10 stars. Or a star out of 5 for me. Because that intro is perfect. Absolutely amazing. And when they make a season 2 eventually, which, yeah, it's been confirmed, I can't wait to see what they do with the intro this time. And I did hear about the intro's existence before. I knew there was an interesting intro, but I didn't know what was happening. I knew there was dancing involved, but I didn't know how it would play out, and it's just so perfect. It's so good. And the side characters in it, like Jamil the janitor, it just works out so perfectly. Next we'll talk about cameos, and there were a lot because James Gunn loves his cameos. So in episode 5, I think, it might be 5 or 6, there's Charlie the gorilla, and earlier in the season they teased there's a gorilla that escaped the zoo, and we find out that gorilla's guarding the butterfly's nectar supply, and the gorilla's name is Charlie. And in DC Comics, there's a gorilla named Charlie the gorilla, and he's like a military gorilla. So it's cool to see this kind of throwback, but it was kind of gross to see him get chainsawed up by John Economos. That's nasty. And Peacemaker references lots of other DC characters like Batmite. Where's John Economos? Well, someone mentions Batmite, Mad Eater Lad, which I hope we see in live action soon, because from how Peacemaker talks, it doesn't sound like he's dead, so we could possibly see him. Speaking of dead, Kite Man, which we're gonna assume Peacemaker murdered, but he was a villain in this universe, so that's whatever, he deserved that, I guess. And obviously the biggest cameo in this whole thing, the Justice League showing up at the end. We never saw Wonder Woman or Superman's face. It makes sense for Superman. We haven't seen his face in a long time. Like Snyder Cut, I guess, accepted. We haven't seen him in a long time. Like Shazam didn't even show his face. They just showed the body because Henry Cavill, I don't think he wants to do this role anymore. Or he does want to do it, but he doesn't trust the writing, which, can you blame him? Anyway, that makes sense, but I don't know why they couldn't get Gal Gadot back. Maybe it was too expensive to bring her and Jason Momoa and Ezra Miller back. Because Jason Momoa and Ezra Miller did return, and they had some funny dialogue between each other. And it just really gets me hyped up for both movies coming out this year. The Flash and Aquaman 2. Specifically Aquaman 2, because Aquaman he's such a good character. I don't know. He's so cool. So, can't wait for that. And, yeah, I like how the cameos in this thing do not detract from the movie. There's another movie, you might have heard of it, called Free Guy. And every cameo in that movie just ruins it for me. Every time there's a cameo in that movie, I feel like it detracts from what I'm trying to watch here. You know what I'm saying? The cameos detract from the story. But in this case, the cameos are just extra stuff. The Justice League doesn't really intervene. They just show up at the end for a funny gag. The show found a way to be original and reference other things without relying on them as a crutch. So I really, really respect the way they did cameos in this show. And there was also obviously Amanda Waller involved in this show. And Adebayo is a great character. And Amanda Waller was, of course, a great character. So to see her here is amazing, and to have a relationship like that. And the ending, let's just start talking about what's going to happen next for the DC Universe because of this show. So we know we're getting a season 2 of Peacemaker, and I'm assuming Judo Master is going to return as the villain or maybe a villain. He might be redeemed, but I'm not sure. I don't think that's where this is going. Because Judo Master was working with the Butterflies, which, yeah, I should probably talk about the villains. What's his name? The White Dragon is an okay villain. I mean, I didn't have any problems with him as, like, the antagonist for Peacemaker, because they work so well together as hero and villain. It's his dad, and he's the one who made him the monster that he is. So it makes so much sense he'd fight him as his villain. But the Butterflies, on the other hand, I don't know if I like them. Like, the Butterflies aren't terrible, but they're just sort of a reused version of Starro, but this time more discreet and secretive. They don't have any origin in DC Comics. I really thought this was Killer Moth as the villain or something. That's my bad for overhyping it. But still, I don't know if the idea of these butterfly aliens really suits well with me. But that's what the show went in, the direction the show went in for the main antagonist, Senator Goff, or Butterfly Goff, or whatever. And it was just weird. I don't know if it worked for me, but it didn't really detract from my enjoyment, so I'm just not going to complain about it. It's not great, but it's okay. So overall, the villains in the show were fine. And, I mean, the show itself is about main characters who are basically villains. So I'll give it an exception, because Vigilante and Peacemaker, terrible people already. So it didn't really need a terrible force behind it, even though it did have two separate enemies, basically, with the White Dragon and his followers and the Butterfly Clan. So yeah, about Season 2, the villain's probably going to be Judo Master, I'd assume. I don't know who else they could pull from, but they have all of DC Comics, so anything's up on the table for James Gunn. And that's not really what's bothering me. What's bothering me is that the Suicide Squad 3 is basically never going to happen. Or at least not the way the last two movies were, even the first one sucked. So at the end, Adebayo reveals to the whole world that Amanda Waller has been using villains in Task Force X, which apparently people did not know about. It was discreet, which, yeah, I guess that makes sense. I just never thought about it that hard. But yeah, it's a discreet organization, and she exposed it. So now Amanda Waller probably, most likely, can't have another Suicide Squad. And she's gonna get arrested, presumably, and maybe die off. So I really hope she doesn't die off, because I really love Viola Davis's portrayal of Amanda Waller in both movies. Like, the first movie, she was one of the highlights. And the Suicide Squad, the first one was terrible, but the second one was so good. It's possibly my favorite DC movie of all time. It's up there with Shazam and The Dark Knight. It's above Shazam. But it's like tied with The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises and Batman Begins as one of my favorite DC movies ever. As my most favorite DC movie ever. So it's really sad to see that, or to believe that we're not gonna get another Suicide Squad movie after James Gunn found the way to make it enjoyable. But I still think they can do it in a more public way, as in the Suicide Squad is a public entity and not so much a private entity, and the politics behind that. Like, can we blow up these people? Can we blow their heads up as a public? Can we agree to this? It's a very big moral dilemma, and because of that, it's probably not gonna happen. But if there is a first, I still think there is a chance for a first Suicide Squad movie to happen eventually, and I hope James Gunn comes back and gives us a whole new cast of characters, including Killer Frost, because I wish she was in one of these movies, because she's a main Suicide Squad member in the comics. Well, that's about it for Peacemaker, and I feel like I went on a rant about the Suicide Squad near the end, but I'll give it an enjoyment scale number of an A, and out of 10, I'd give it a solid 9. I don't think it blew me. It did blow me away, but I don't think it was the greatest thing I've ever seen. But it was definitely a nice way to start off the year. A nice original, fresh, funny comedy TV show with lots of heart, lots of drama. Forgot to mention his brother, but that was really sad, that whole storyline. And John Cena did a great job. And it's a really solid show. It wasn't the greatest TV show I've ever seen. Like, I don't even know what I would say is the greatest TV show I've ever seen, but it was definitely worth the watch. I would go watch it if I were you on HBO Max. Or if not on HBO Max, I don't know, pirate it on a website. I'm not encouraging that, but you know what I'm saying. So go watch Peacemaker. It's an A, 9 out of 10. It's a really good show, and I wouldn't suggest it for younger people. If you're young, just please don't watch it. Go ask your parents if they want you to watch it. I really doubt they would, but just check, okay? And that's about it. Thanks for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts on Peacemaker down below. JM Comics out.